As a developer, Data East can be a bit rough. Even their good games are a bit off-kilter, and they had a lot of games that were really dire. I think Bloody Wolf on the PC Engine is one of the few times where Data East was ahead of the curve. They made something that predicted where games were going, and it winds up being one of their best. The blueprint for Bloody Wolf actually starts in the arcade. It's a run-and-gun played from a 3/4 perspective, and if you were to do a direct comparison between Bloody Wolf the arcade game and Bloody Wolf the PC Engine game, you'd find that the two of them look very close. There's no simultaneous co-op in the PC Engine version, and that was something that was often lost in these home conversions at the time. However, if you take a good look at things, there are many improvements to the home version. The PC Engine version of Bloody Wolf may use many of the same stage layouts, but it adds so much that it feels like a completely different game. The concept is that Bloody Wolf is a unit of elite commandos in the US military. The president has been kidnapped by ninjas, or guerrillas, and they are bad enough dudes to get him back. One thing that you're going to quickly notice is that Bloody Wolf draws a lot of inspiration from Metal Gear. One of your character selections even has the default name of Snake. Bloody Wolf happens to be a game that has a lot of story. Not a deep story, but there's a lot of it. And there is a US version. So let's just flip over from PC Engine Power to TG16 Turbo for the rest of this episode. Okay, the entire difference between your two characters, who have default names of Snake and Eagle, is that they have different conversations with characters. Eagle, the one with hair, is a bit more jokey, while Snake, the bald one, gets the tough guy lines. The way that the action works is button 2 fires your main weapon, button 1 jumps, or dives if you're in the water, and pressing start uses your secondary weapon. Jumping and diving is helpful for avoiding bullets, but there are several attacks that you're not capable of jumping over. And unfortunately, it's not always clear which is which. On the other hand, nothing can hit you while you're diving, but you can't attack either, and it's possible that you'll emerge someplace where you'll still get hit. While you're running around the world, you can sometimes enter buildings or the backs of trucks, and you might find hostages or boxes there. The hostages can give you useful information, and all of them might give you useful items. Any primary weapon that you pick up like this, and all of your secondary weapons, have limited ammo, and collecting a different one from what you have throws away whatever's left. There are also items that are permanent upgrades, things that will let you get through obstacles easier. The permanent upgrade that you start with is the knife, and that's an alternate weapon you use to stab people when you're close to them. Some enemies can only be hurt by either the knife or explosives, and the knife is how you open up boxes, which means it's way more useful than you think. Boxes can also be destroyed by explosives, so you'll want to be careful when you're in a room with them. You get the key from a prisoner, and that allows you to open locked boxes. The flippers grant you the ability to move through water faster, and the IR goggles will let you see the beams that trigger traps in the enemy's fortress. Body armor prevents you from taking extra damage from explosives, and finally the cross will protect you from damage once. In terms of primary weapons, there's really only 2 of them. You can pick up a shotgun, which is spread fire, and a bazooka, which gives you explosive shots. Your default weapon is just a rifle, and it's perfectly fine. If you have to rely on it for some reason, you'll be okay. For secondary weapons, you always start with some grenades, but you can also get powerful grenades which have a larger explosion radius, flash grenades which stun all enemies on the screen, and the flamethrower which is a continuous stream of fire. The secondary weapons go up and down elevations, while the primary weapons don't, so you have to rely on the secondary weapons to get people who are above and below you. The other significant pickups are medicine, which fully restores your health, and muscle enhancement tablets, which grant you an extra bar of health up to a maximum of 6. But you always go back to the default 3 points of health if you have to continue. You only have 1 life in Bloody Wolf, but they give you infinite continues, and there are checkpoints that you continue from throughout the stages, including one at every boss. There's one more thing you can get that's a power-up but not really a power-up, and that's a motorcycle. Most of the time you have to get these by shooting the people off of them. Then you can drive it around, and damage to the motorcycle reduces its fuel. That fuel will eventually run down on its own as you move, and you'll have to hit start to get off the motorcycle before it explodes. The motorcycle has its own machine gun, and it's capable of jumping, so it's just as maneuverable as you are. Stage 1 has you attacking an enemy outpost, and the boss for the level is a submarine that will dive underwater and blow up the ground that you're standing on. Once the submarine's been dispatched, then you start moving through the jungle. Here you'll have to fight a boss with a flamethrower who also dives back into the water. And then after you climb up to a high point, you fight a helicopter in a sequence taken directly from Rambo 3. Stage 3 has you crossing the mountains, and at the end you have to fight a boss with a sniper rifle who can block most of your shots except when he's jumping. You have to jump over his giant attack and then hit him as he's landing. Finally, after that, you've reached the camp where the president is being held, and when you reach the enemy commander, he steals all your stuff. You're only left with a knife, and you'll have to run around and stab him, deflecting his boomerangs as you go. His super attack can hit you while you're in the air, which makes dodging him incredibly difficult. After that, you have to escort the president out of the base, and fortunately for the game, the president can't be hurt by explosives or getting shot. However, you didn't get your equipment back after you beat the boss, and so you have to knife your way back through the stage you just completed. At the end, there's only room on the helicopter for one more passenger, so you let the president get on, and then you're captured. That means that the character you didn't select at the start of the game has to go in and rescue your first character. And you parachute into a free-roaming stage where you can go in any direction. You have to locate all of the hostages on this stage and save them before you're allowed to continue. And you'll have to knife fight a maniac in the process. The next stage has you rafting down a river, and of course there's hundreds of enemy troops on both sides jumping at you and taking their pot shots. At the end of this, there's a tank where you'll have to position yourself very carefully to avoid its missiles and be able to step in between the regular bullets. Stage 7 takes place in marshlands, and the boss here is a giant boat that will absolutely flood you with enemies. You can avoid its shots by dodging under the water, but it releases so many soldiers that you'll find it difficult to surface without getting hit. Finally, the 8th and final stage is the enemy headquarters, a trap-filled building that also acts as a boss gauntlet. If you manage to beat the game, then you unlock a code for a hard mode. And if you manage to complete that, then you get a special mode where the jump button becomes a hover button, and you can just fly over most of the game. Bloody Wolf has a reputation as one of the best PC Engine games, and it's definitely an excellent title. While it's possible to push your way through by continuing indefinitely, several of the later bosses are real skill checks, and you're going to die over and over to them. Now personally, I used to be able to do this all on a single credit, but obviously I'm way out of practice. Bloody Wolf on the PC Engine is one of Data East's best efforts, something well worth checking out.